Hello, learner. Welcome to Mr. Quakers Teaches. I am Mr. Quakers. In this lesson, I'll be analyzing Stevie Smith's poem, Touch and Go. Now, this poem is part of the 15 poems in your GCSE or IGCSE anthology. And I've analyzed all the 15 poems into a course. So the course contains the analysis of all 15 individual poems. You can see samples of them on YouTube or other of my social media handles, the full. And you can also see a preview of it when you visit my website, which will be in the link. Now, the course contains all the analysis and also predicted questions as well. So you listen to an analysis, you can try out the predicted questions to check your understanding of the poem. Now, this is useful because sometimes students have a fair understanding of the poem, but they're unable to write. And that's where the third part of what the course contains comes in. Sample A star or grade 9 essays. Now, these essays are useful because they help you to know what to include, for example, in your introduction, what to include in the body of the essays, how to use conjunctions, what to write, about the form and structure of the poem, and also what to do in the conclusion. So those sample essays, which are part of the course, also helps with that. So you can mirror or mimic them to improve your writing. Now, additionally, at Mr. Quakers Teaches, we also provide like tuition services. So on all the other components of the English literature. So this is the poetry component. We also provide tuition in the prose, drama, and also the unseen paper. Now, you can join by signing up. The first lesson of our tuition is free. So it means that you can join, trial the lesson and see if it's something that works with you. You can book multiple lessons. No matter how short the time, you can help improve your confidence and quickly make you move up the grade. Now, additionally, we also provide tuition in the other components, the other subjects as well for example, in English language, geography, history, the sciences, math. So we have a league of teachers that can provide you very good, tuition to improve your confidence, try practice papers, and help you to also manage your time. So those are all services that at Mr. Quakers Teaches we offer. Now, additionally, if you want to reach out to me, maybe you want to send me an email or you have an inquiry or something, you can send the email to my email address. The email address is mrq@mrquakersteaches.com. mrq@mrquakersteaches.com, or you can also send me the email, or you can send the email to mrquakersteaches@gmail.com. So you can do that and then I'll reach out to you. Now, for the course, to sign up for the course or to gain access to the course, it's for £5 a month. So you get access to all the 15 poems, predicted questions, and also sample lister essays. Or you can buy it for £45 a year. So that means you get to save 3 months or £15 in your subscription. So any of those options are things that you can do, and then you gain access to it. Now in the course, you can also ask questions and then I'll reach out to you. Let's begin the analysis. Now let's begin by speaking about the poet. She was born Florence Margaret Smith in Hall, Yorkshire in 1902. Then she moved with her family to North London suburbs when she was 3. Then she lived in the same house for the rest of her life. She graduated from the North London Collegiate School and went to work as a secretary. She published several collections of short prose and letters, as well as nearly a dozen volumes of verse. Now, one of the things I like about her is one of the previous poems that I've analyzed, Not Weaving But Drowning. So that's one of her most famous poems. That's also one of the poems from yesteryears, I think 4 or 5 years ago, that was part of the GCSE or IGCSE anthology. So she's a very, very prolific writer, and she's somebody that ought to be celebrated for her work. So that's just a brief note on Stevie Smith. Now, this is how the poem appears on your page. Now, forgive me, I made it a bit cramped so that you can see all of it, the appearance of it. In terms of the summary of the poem is about this speaker who is talking about man's condition, the fact that man has like primitive tendencies, but is coming out towards enlightenment, but then he's caught by his tail. So essentially, man is enlightened and semi-primitive. And there's this wish, for man to come out and become totally enlightened. So that essentially is the summary of the poem. Towards the end of it, man begins to move, but again, his movement is very slow. So that's how the poem ends in terms of conclusion. Now, this is the first line of the poem. Man is coming out of the mountains. So that's the first line. The second line says, but his tail is caught in the past. Now, man there is a gender-neutral reference to the whole of humanity. So it's not just man as in a male, but then it's for humanity, both male and female. Now, the word there, coming out of the mountains, is a metaphor for man exiting primitive living or lifestyle. So essentially, man is coming out from the mountains, which is jagged and rough, and is coming into civility or into civil living. In the second line, we're told that but his tail is caught in a pass. Now, this is quite shocking because it tells us it's an allusion to man's primitive trait. So that's like man has like a primitive trait. And what is the primitive trait? The primitive trait there is his tail. We're going to see it in a bit, right? But that primitive trait makes it impossible for him to make progress. So man cannot make progress. And in a pass is a metaphor for the last step that humankind or mankind needs to take to be considered enlightened. So the pass is like the final thing, the final action that man has to take to be considered enlightened. Now, the speaker likely says that it is man's tail that stops his exit from the mountains because it is a vestigial feature. Now, when we talk about a vestigial feature, it's a feature that is no longer needed, right? Like a tail, like in the human body, for example, they talk about the appendix. So we are told here that it is his tail. Essentially, the entirety of man's body is gone past the past. Like is his tail, which is quite small, and it's quite interesting because why is his tail what is holding him back? But I think that the word tail there is used there as a metaphor for the last bits of man's primitive lifestyle that is holding him back. Then, in the second two lines, on lines 3 and 4 of the first stanza, we see the use of a rhetorical question. And the rhetorical question is, why does he not free himself? So that's what we see in the third line. But then the fourth line, it continues that, is he not an ass? Now, this question here carries an insulting tone because it seems to be asking if man cannot take the final step into an enlightenment because he's a fool, essentially. So is it because man is a fool? That is why he's unable to take the final step into enlightenment. So that essentially is the question. Now, another voice appears to answer or speak. It says that, or it says, do not be impatient with him. So that's a plea from a speaker, which possibly is not the same speaker that is asking the question. I mean, I don't know, because in the poem, we're going to see a range of voices that speak. Now it says here that it's a plea to her listener not to be irritated. So don't be irritated by man, but try to accommodate him a bit longer. Don't give up on him. That's what it means by do not be impatient with him. Don't give up on him. Accommodate him a bit more. In the second line of the second stanza, we're told that he is bowed with passion and fret. So here, it reveals that man is not standing erect. So maybe possibly because he's not Homo erectus, right? An erect man, because of two things. He's bowed by passion and fret. So passion there is an allusion to man's emotions. So how man reacts emotionally. And that is what is a restraint for man, being entirely free. Then the second part, which is fret, is an allusion to man showing physical or visible signs of fear. So there is palpable appearance of fear in man. So those are the two things that bow man. So his emotions, and then his lack of controls for his emotion, and then the visible expressions of fear. Then the speaker now tells us again that he is not out of the mountains. So we see here that point, or this mention of mountains, which we saw in the first line of the first stanza of the poem, is again being repeated here. So this reiterates that man is not fully come out of primitivity or primitive living. Now, in the second stanza as well, we also see the use of anaphora. So anaphora is when a word or a phrase or group of words is repeated multiple times at the beginning of a line, or maybe it could be consecutive lines, or maybe the lines may be broken a bit, but then it's repeated. And we see here that there's a repetition of he is and he is not. So he is bowed, and then he is not, and then he is not half, right? Now, the repetition of is and is not as the first words of 3 and 2 consecutive lines qualifies the words as an anaphora. And what does an anaphora do? It emphasizes man's centrality to the narration. So man is central. The position of man in the explanation of things is very, very vital. Then in the final line of the stanza, we're told he is not half of it yet. So this is a coded way of saying that man is still semi-primitive. And now this motif or this idea is something that we are going to see multiple times. So he's not half out of it yet. So I think this voice here is a bit more pessimistic, because when he says it's not half of it, it means there's more of man in primitive living than in the enlightened phase. Now, in terms of themes of the poem, we see the theme of mental and emotional condition of man. So the mental and emotional condition of man or humanity, the brutality of the human condition. We also see the theme of humanity's relationship with the divine. So we see that multiple times in the mentioning of divine, my creature and all of that, or prayer. Then we also see the theme of the loneliness of man and the unavailability of help for him in creation. That's because in most instances, if something happens to man, it is only another man that can help man. No other creature can save man, essentially. Then we also see the theme of the developmental stage of man and the final vestiges of primitive living, among other themes. What other themes can you see? So it's talking about man being a bit developed, but then there are still the final vestiges or signs that man is quite primitive. Now, in terms of the tone of the poem, it's very gossipy, insulting, pleading, emotional, irritated, unsure. So gossipy because it's telling us about what is happening to man. Then we also see that other voices appear to insult man and say that he's a fool. Then we also see that there are other voices that plead for help to come to man, and then other voices are quite emotional when they talk about man's condition. The other voices are also irritated. They say, let him take care of himself. He should get on with it. But then in the final stanza, we see the tone of unsureness. Now, in terms of the point of view of the poem is recounted mainly in the third-person point of view, because it's talking about man. It's describing the various state of man. But it appears that the speaker is speaking directly to someone. Now, in terms of the form and structure of the poem has an A, B, C, B, D, E, F, E, G, H, I, H. So it's quite, rhythmic in a way. So you see, for example, that the second and the fourth line in each of the stanzas, appear to rhyme. And that makes it easy it gives the poem musicality and makes it easier for the reader to memorize it. It's also useful because it tells us that the speaker has put a lot of thought in man's condition, and he wants to write it in such a way that people remember it. Now, again, in terms of the form and structure of the poem has 28 lines in total. That is broken into 7 quatrain or 4-line stanzas. Quatrain just means 4-line, quat, which allows the speaker to give a very detailed description of man's developmental state as he moves from primitive living to enlightenment. Then we also see the use of enjambment as well. So the flow of words from one line to the next without pause. And it's useful because it reveals the speaker's openness to reveal more details about man's state to the listener. Now, I usually tell my students that if you're looking to get a grade 9 or an A star, even an A or even grade 8, you have to write about the form and structure of the poem. It is one of the AOs. So you have to be able to talk about the form and structure of the poem, the lining and the rest of it. So you can do that with this information that I've put here. So here you have it. Stevie Smith's Touch and Go has been made simple. Like I mentioned in the opening of the analysis, this analysis is part of a course. in which I've analyzed all the 15 poems in your GCSE or IGCSE anthology. And you can gain access to it by subscribing for only £5 a month, or you can buy the entirety of the course for a year for £45. Now, additionally, the course contains the analysis of each of the 15 poems, predicted questions, and sample A-star or grade 9 essays that you can mimic, as you write your essays, how to write essays, what to include in the introduction, what to put in the body, how to use conjunctions, among others. Now, it's imperative that if you're looking to get a very, very good grade, that you study the poem quite closely, and this analysis will do that for you. Additionally, at Mr. Quakers Teachers, we also provide tuition services as well. So we provide tuition services in the other components of the English literature, like the prose, drama, the unseen paper, and also the poetry as well, if you need further help. Now, additionally, we also provide tuition services as well for the other subjects like English language, geography, history, sociology, math, the sciences, triple sciences. We have a league of teachers that are very experienced, that can improve your confidence, help you practice past papers to ensure that you ace your exams. That's what we provide at Mr. Quakers Teachers. Build your confidence, make sure you ace the paper. Now, finally, if you have any questions, you want to reach me directly, you can send an email to Mr. Q at mrquakersteachers.com. Mr. Q at mrquakersteachers.com, or you can also send an email to me at mrquakersteachers@gmail.com. And then you can also leave comments in the comments field if you find this analysis in any of my social media handles, and then I'll reach out to you and see how best to help you ensure that you get the grade or you ace your exams. Thank you for sticking and staying. Until the next lesson, bye-bye from me.